It's a slow Tuesday morning, one of those mornings that feels like nothing could possibly go wrong. Officer David Harris is cruising down a quiet street in his patrol car, the engine humming steadily beneath him. The sun is up, the birds are singing, and life seems to be moving in slow motion. There's nothing remarkable about today, just another day of doing the same thing he's done for years. Harris has seen it all. He knows how to spot trouble, how to read the signs, how to follow the rules. Everything seems peaceful, predictable, even boring. Until he sees Derrick Johnson. Derrick isn't doing anything out of the ordinary. He's just walking down the sidewalk dressed in a simple button-up shirt and jeans, carrying a leather briefcase. But to Harris, it feels like the world has just shifted. There's a confidence in Derrick's stride that rubs Harris the wrong way. Something about him doesn't match the neighborhood. His calm, purposeful walk, the way he holds himself, everything feels off, even though nothing about Derrick should be raising any red flags. Harris can't explain why, but there's this nagging feeling creeping up, telling him that something's not right. It's the kind of gut feeling that's impossible to ignore. And before he even realizes what he's doing, Harris flips on the siren. Officer David Harris slows down as he watches Derrick Johnson from his patrol car. There's nothing outwardly suspicious about the man. His clothes are neat, his briefcase looks professional. In fact, Derrick could be anyone, just another man going about his day. But something inside Harris's gut tells him otherwise. It's that subtle shift in the air, that feeling of unease he's learned to trust over the years. Derrick walks steadily, his eyes forward, unaware of the officer's gaze. But to Harris, it feels like a carefully controlled act, like Derrick is hiding something. Harris tries to dismiss it, telling himself he's just being cautious. After all, it's his job to be alert, to question the unexpected. But deep down, he knows the real reason why his instincts are on edge. It's not Derrick's briefcase or the way he walks, but the quiet confidence that feels too deliberate. Harris can't put his finger on it, but that doesn't matter. His mind is already shifting, settling into an all-too-familiar rhythm. Something isn't right. And that's when Harris's prejudice begins to creep in, unnoticed at first. Without realizing it, he's already begun to label Derrick, to make assumptions. He doesn't know the man, hasn't spoken to him, but there's an image in his head. Derrick doesn't belong here. The neighborhood doesn't fit his look. Harris can't explain it, but it's there. His hand hovers over the radio, his thumb inching toward the button. And this is what he does. He's a cop. His job is to stop threats before they escalate. Harris's hand finally moves, the radio crackling to life. His voice comes out steady, but inside, a flicker of doubt lingers. He tells himself that he's just being cautious, just doing his job. But as he watches Derrick from behind the wheel, something darker begins to take shape in his mind. The man's confidence, his calm demeanor, it all feels like a challenge. To Harris, someone like Derrick, walking this neighborhood, just doesn't fit. This is the part where prejudice begins to cloud judgment. Harris isn't thinking clearly anymore. His assumptions take over. Derrick's quiet confidence, the way he carries himself, feels like a subtle provocation, an assertion that he doesn't belong in a place like this. Harris doesn't see Derrick as an individual. He sees him as part of a larger narrative, one that he's been taught, one that's been reinforced over years of experience on the force. A black man walking alone in this part of town is a red flag in Harris's mind. The uncomfortable truth is that Harris isn't just following his instincts anymore. He's following his biases. The world he's built around himself tells him that people like Derrick are out of place, that they don't belong here. He can't explain it, but it doesn't matter. His foot presses down on the brake, and before he knows it, he's pulling up alongside Derrick. Harris knows he doesn't have a solid reason to stop Derrick. There's no law being broken, no suspicious behavior. But as the seconds tick by, Harris's hand drifts toward the radio. He could just call it in, run a quick check, and let someone else handle it. But no, that's not what he does. The discomfort in his gut grows, almost suffocating him. He's heard the rumors about this neighborhood, rising crime, drugs, gang activity, and maybe, just maybe, Derrick is part of it. It's the way he carries himself, the way he moves through the street like he owns it, like he doesn't belong. Harris can't shake the feeling. Something's wrong, and in his mind, he's the one who needs to fix it. He puts the cruiser in gear, pulls up alongside Derrick, and rolls the window down. His voice, calm yet firm, breaks the stillness of the morning. "Hey you, stop right there." The words hang in the air, thick with authority, but beneath them there's an edge, a subtle prejudice that Harris doesn't even realize he's carrying. Derrick hears the command and pauses for a split second, but only a second. He's not surprised. He's been stopped before, been profiled before. He turns slightly to face Harris, his expression calm but alert. The look in his eyes isn't defiant, but it isn't fearful either. He knows his rights, and he knows the drill. He doesn't break stride, doesn't hesitate. "Yes, officer." Derrick's voice is smooth, controlled. His eyes never leave Harris as he waits for the inevitable question. Harris looks him over again. There it is again, that calmness that Harris doesn't trust. Derrick isn't reacting the way he expects. There's no fear, no nervous twitch, no quick glance around. It's almost as if Derrick knows this moment will pass without issue. Harris feels something shift within him. Derrick's reaction doesn't fit the profile Harris has in his head. But still, he doesn't back down. "You mind telling me what you're doing around here?" Harris asks, his tone a bit sharper now. Derrick's calmness only makes Harris more suspicious. The moment hangs in the air, thick with unspoken judgment. Derrick pauses, his gaze steady as he meets Harris's eyes. It's almost as if he's waiting for Harris to realize what's about to unfold. Derrick knows this game too well, the slow dance of suspicion and assumption that too many black men have been forced to play. "Just walking to work," Derrick responds. His voice is quiet but clear, a statement of fact rather than an explanation. His answer should be enough, but to Harris, it's not. There's something in Derrick's tone, something too calm, too controlled. Harris can't help but feel like Derrick is hiding something, though he can't pinpoint exactly what. The tension between them builds, a quiet standoff. Derrick stands there, relaxed but resolute, while Harris's mind races. He knows there's no real reason to detain Derrick, but in his gut, he still feels like something's off. And that's when it happens. The small crack in Harris's judgment. He opens his mouth to ask another question, to dig deeper, but something stops him. Is it his instincts telling him to back off? Or is it his ego? Either way, the moment lingers longer than it should, and Derrick feels the air shift between them. Derrick Johnson slows to a stop, turning his head slightly toward the officer. There's no fear in his eyes, only calm. He's seen this before, though not in this neighborhood. He knows the routine, but this time feels different. David Harris is standing in front of him, and something about the officer's tone, the subtle accusation in his voice, feels personal. Derrick doesn't flinch. He doesn't react the way most would when confronted by a cop. He stays still, his hands at his sides, his posture relaxed but alert. "Can I help you, officer?" Derrick asks, his voice smooth and controlled, though there's an underlying edge of curiosity. He doesn't know why he's being stopped, and that uncertainty is the first crack in his otherwise calm demeanor. Harris can feel it. The way Derrick's questions are calculated, like he's not afraid, just inconvenienced. Harris tightens his jaw, unsure if he should push further or just let it go. Something about Derrick's presence makes him uncomfortable in a way he can't articulate. Derrick's confidence feels almost like a challenge, a reminder that, deep down, Harris doesn't have a real reason for this stop. But Harris pushes on. As Harris reaches for his radio, his hand trembling slightly, he begins to notice the subtle details. The way Derrick's shoes are polished, the fine leather of his briefcase, the way his gaze doesn't falter when their eyes meet. It's as if he's not intimidated by this situation. And in that moment, something clicks in Harris's mind. A small piece of information comes to the surface, something he doesn't want to acknowledge. Derrick's not just anyone. Before Harris can say anything, the sound of a car door slamming cuts through the tension. A second officer, Sergeant. Mitchell pulls up behind Harris. His expression changes as he gets out of the car and looks at Derrick. The recognition is immediate. Derrick Johnson, federal agent. "What the hell are you doing here?" Mitchell asks, his voice a mix of disbelief and concern. Harris blinks, stunned as the reality of the situation hits him like a freight train. Derrick isn't some random suspect. He's a federal agent, the last person Harris should have ever stopped. The moment hangs in the air, heavy with the weight of Harris's mistake. Derrick doesn't need to say a word. His calm demeanor speaks volumes. He watches as Harris's face shifts from suspicion to disbelief, then to something else. Embarrassment. Harris's mouth goes dry as he realizes just how far he's gone, how much he's misjudged this man based on nothing but his own preconceived ideas. You're an agent," Harris stammers, trying to recover. But the damage is done. Derrick simply nods. There's no anger in his expression, no need for confrontation. The power has shifted, and now Harris is the one standing in the shadow. "Next time," Derrick says, his voice still calm but with an undeniable weight behind it, "you might want to know who you're dealing with before you make assumptions." He pauses, allowing the words to sink in. "I'm not just some guy off the street." As Derrick walks away, Harris stands frozen in place, the cruiser engine still idling. His mind races, replaying the events, his thoughts a jumbled mess of confusion and regret. How could he have been so blind? He'd let his biases cloud his judgment, let the world he'd built in his mind dictate his actions, without ever considering the truth. And the truth, now staring him in the face, is that he failed, not just as a cop, but as a person. Derrick's words echo in his mind. You might want to know who you're dealing with. And for the first time in a long while, Harris feels the weight of his own limitations, the shackles of his prejudice breaking apart.